各位，当一位传奇黑客，后来成为生未来风投创始人的霍尔曼，把科技竞争描述为永不结束的战争的时候，他其实在指出一个被忽略的核心，那就是能源正在成为 AI 时代新的地缘分界线。在新闻层面，大家依然关注半导体、算法或者安全漏洞，但在结构层面，真正决定未来竞争力的，正是从算法之争转向能源之争。过去2年，关于 AI 的讨论高度集中在模型规模、芯片供应链与硅谷的技术路线，但沃尔曼的观点提供了另一条入口。如果能量无法跟上，所有的巨势叙事都会自爱难行。从英伟达高端芯片的巨大能耗，到数据中心对天然气、电力和冷却系统的依赖，再到欧洲与亚洲不同的能源结构，这些看似分散的场景共同形成一个事实：能源正在成为 AI 竞争的隐形底盘。这也是为什么核能会重新回到科技公司的核心议程。核心矛盾实际上只剩下一条：当美国的核能审批体系以10年来计算，而中国同时推进上百个反应堆项目， AI 时代的能源差距是否会在10年内被放大成为战略的差距呢？这一点并不在于技术好坏，而在于部署的速度。素材本来很轻，从钻孔反应堆到可规模化制造的吃尺寸反应堆，从科技巨头重返核能，到美国想要突破诉讼文化的限制，这些并不需要展开细节，却都指向同一个关键意义：如果能源能决定算力的底层，那么核能的部署速度将直接影响国家的竞争力。这一观察的价值在于，它并不是在预测未来，而是在刻画当下的现实压力。当中国能够用3年建成大型反应堆，而美国的监管和诉讼体系仍让项目难以落地，当硅谷公司开始主动推动核反应堆立法，当 AI 的能耗曲线加速上升，这些力量共同指向一个问题：美国若想维持技术优势，就必须要在能源上与中国正面竞争。因此，这一期技术值得关注的不是某一种新技术，而是霍尔曼给出的结构性提醒：算力竞争的真正瓶颈不在云端，而在地表1英里以下。接下来，我们从他的视觉进入这一个入口，理解为什么核能有可能会成为 AI 战略最被低估的部分。让我们看一下视频。
You know, here's how I would try to think about it. Technology in general, especially computers, especially computer security, these things are a war of escalation. You cannot win that war. You can lose very easily by not playing. And so, for better or worse, I think it's important to think about these things this way. You know, you can kind of see it if you're going to say geopolitically on technology in general. You know, China and the US are definitely trying to play.
Yep.
And you can see a lot of places that I won't name, like Europe, that you absolutely could say are not playing. And so you'll see how that plays out. You can see how it plays out with lots of technologies.
What are the main technologies? I mean, are we talking semiconductors and AI? Are we talking
These days, those are the biggest ones. And the reason they're so big is they're generally applicable. So, you know, computers can be applied to everything. They'll end up, you know, if you haven't got one in your pocket by now, you will. I mean, it's just, they go everywhere. So computers are very important. Technology that's generally applicable, you just can't ignore it. So you could hang out in Copenhagen and draft off China and the US if that's what you want to do. But I think it's dangerous not to play the game. So you want to get to the point where you can at least wield these technologies to whatever extent you think is important. So that's as much as I think people really need to know. Now, there's a whole stack. You know, those chips, you know, the software relies on the chips, which rely increasingly on energy. All these hyperscalers have woken up this year to the fact that a chip from NVIDIA needs a shit ton of energy, and we've been burning gas to get it. So maybe we should find something better. So now there's a lot of attention on improving energy. I'm so excited about that.
Do you think the hyperscalers will actually help resurrect nuclear energy in the US?
I think hyperscalers are going to save us.
Yeah.
It's a
kinda
crazy
wild
thing to say.
huh?
It's a crazy thing to say, but you can thank Meta and Microsoft and Google. And the reason is we don't make enough energy on this planet. Now, you could say we make enough energy for Americans because we're not very price sensitive and we can just keep throwing money at it. But you will watch, even not counting AI, you will see that energy demand is off the charts. Like, try to remember when Shell or Chevron advertised to get you to buy more gas. Like, it's the biggest market in the world. They don't have to advertise their product.
Yeah.
I mean, they advertise to get you to buy it from them.
Speaking of dodgeball,
Yeah.
I think in your book you wrote that at one point, was it the Senate was like switching players on a dodgeball team between Chevron and someone else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say the oil industry probably staffed Congress
Yeah.
for most of our lives.
Yeah.
Now it's hyperscalers.
Yeah.
And so we are getting the legislation that we need. You know, last year, the most bipartisan bill I know of was called Advance. That was to build nuclear reactors in the US. Now, Trump has signed multiple executive orders to build nuclear reactors and free it up, and it's working. The overhaul of the NRC, which regulates nuclear, has been amazing. They're supportive and helpful. In my lifetime, they were usually a anti-nuclear activist group. Like, it's been crazy because we invented one of the most advanced nuclear reactors at the Intellectual Ventures Lab where I was before. And for the last 18 years, you've seen me on stage telling people nuclear reactors are awesome and they're coming, and they weren't coming. And that is because the NRC regulated them into oblivion. That has all changed now. And as of this year, this is crazy. As of this week, so we have now a nuclear reactor company, I should describe, which has invented a reactor that fits in a borehole. They bury it a mile deep. So this reactor is unquestionably
It's like the size
safe.
of a small car or something
It's
like
the
that?
size of a Toyota, not more complicated than a Toyota. And the thing can be made in a factory like a Toyota, but it's buried under 10 billion tons of rock. It's something that, you know, if anything went wrong, there'd be no radioactivity at the surface. It's a mile from anyone's backyard.
And when you retire it or when it stops functioning,
fill
you
the hole with dirt.
just bury it.
Yeah. Leave the uranium where we found it. Like, it's a really exciting way of making
How do you
nuclear
cool it?
reactors. There's a water in the borehole that goes down and cools it. And what's so fascinating is if you look at like a Fukushima type problem, there's these pumps that are supposed to be pumping water through the reactor core to cool it. And those pumps could fail. Well, the pressure, the water pressure in the borehole from gravity creates enough pressure to cool the reactor.
Gravity's been pretty reliable
Pretty
so far.
reliable so far. So then that makes steam that goes back up and you run a turbine like in a generator like everyone else. So the reason I'm describing this is that that company was on a track to get the reactor approved in a couple years, build a test core at a national lab over a couple years, then build a commercial reactor in like 2029. The Department of Energy is pushing them to do all of that by July. They will deploy their first reactors in July. It's insane. It's awesome. And then we'll make thousands in a gigafactory.
Do you think the US is kind of a day late and a dollar short in terms of waking up to the reality? Because my understanding,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to get the number right,
okay.
but looking at China, they have how many?
I think they
functioning
have about 130 reactor projects, and they tend to get them done on time, on budget. There's different technologies. They're trying them all. It takes them about 3 years to build a reactor, and those are big ones. They're smoking it. It's amazing.
And is that legacy? Well, maybe it's cleaned up, but mostly legacy technology in terms of
Yeah, so there are
reactors?
different kinds of reactor technologies, and I won't weigh in on that because I think we need 1,000 silver bullets, and I kind of want them all to succeed. Obviously, I invest in the ones I think are the best. But the future of reactors involves a bunch of advanced reactor technologies. So like the TerraPower reactor that we invented at the Intellectual Ventures Lab, which we can't build because it's new technology, not because there's any other reason.
And that's a regulatory hurdle?
It's a regulatory, but just because the US has never figured out how to approve any advanced reactor technology. Once they do, we could build something like that. That reactor is powered by nuclear waste. It literally recycles nuclear waste inside the reactor. So that's where we want to go. That might take a while. So the deep fission reactor that I described that goes in the borehole, no new technology, just a simple design, and you get the containment for the price of a hole. And we have a whole industry that's real good at holes.
If you were, not saying you would agree to this, but if you were brought in by people you trust to advise the current administration on what the U.S. needs to do to remain globally, strategically advantaged, right? Or at least not lose, what are some of those pieces of advice that you would give?
Wow. Well, I'd say the number one thing is going to be energy. In energy, the number one thing is fission reactors. Love fusion, hope we get it someday. Don't hold your breath. We have other technologies that I think could happen sooner than fusion that we could talk about, like space solar. But I would say aggressively deploy nuclear reactors, make that as easy as possible. Take on the biggest problem remaining is the litigious nature of the US. So you start a nuclear reactor project, you get 1,000 lawsuits. We got to squelch that because we're competing with China and China doesn't have that problem. And so, make a clean regulatory track that makes it possible to deploy these things at scale. That's the most important thing. If you get nuclear reactors, you solve a lot of other problems for free.
Right.
And so I think that with limited attention span, that would be where my focus would be. Commercially, we can take care of the chips and everything after that.